First of all, my beloved nephew became a victim to this, Burhan Hassan. And that's what really started me in this different direction of my life. And then what scared me is that immediately we have learned we were not alone. Immediately we have found other families. Then what made it more worse is that it was not just happening at that time. It was happening last 2 years. And what encouraged me and made me angry is that people were afraid. Parents were afraid. And they could not speak out. They were afraid for their lives because of the attacks that would have been put on them. There are certain people that would attack people within the Muslim community, or organizations that would attack people and start name calling and do all kind of worse thing for them to speak out. So it was no-go zone, except crazy people like me. So those things are the things that really encouraged me to fight the Goya in our community that was silencing our people into submission of letting their kids go into becoming a terrorist. So my mission was to dispel that fear. I would never want anyone to go through what my sister went through, or all those mothers. It's something that's stuck in my mind, and I wouldn't want anyone else to happen that, whether it's Somali or African American or Native American. It happened to all of them. So we should all work together to stop that from happening to any other parent. I think, for all those years that I have been engaged in the community, we have, along the way, identified issues that make our young people vulnerable to not only to recruitment by terrorist groups, but also gangs and violent extremism. I think those vulnerable young people have been suffering a lot of issues. One of them is identity crisis. Another major blow came from the lack of resources to engage them. A lot of basic programming in most of the communities do not exist in this community. Programming such as after-school programming, mentorship, homework help, sports engagement, arts engagement, all those things are almost zero in these communities. We also need to address discrimination issues. It's very important. A lot of young people in our communities feel very angry because they are discriminated, maybe in the school or by the law enforcement or some other departments. Unemployment is very high. In some communities, it might be 3% in Minnesota, but in certain communities, it's about 50%. If we don't capture that anger and channel into positive programming, we will continue to fail big time. But on the silence of the other side, yes, a lot of people are afraid to be attacked as Islamophobic, to speak on that. Also, there are people who make a lot of comments that also take things out of context, generalize the whole community of Muslim or Somali community, generalize all of them, while we have only few kids who have been recruited compared to hundreds of thousands of people in the state. So that makes the situation really worse, and it makes our work of making our communities aware and engaged, it makes it difficult because people don't like to be generalizing. We always say the majority of Muslims, are not involved in this and are against this. I agree, but we are not loud enough. When our young people are not equipped with the knowledge that this thing is bad, and when this thing is not coming from all the imams, all the leaders, the parents, the law enforcement, the neighbors, it's bad. Young people, someone will tell them something and they hardly see someone else who's telling them the right thing. They might only know it's right thing to do because that's what they heard. So our silence is a huge challenge. So I think every parent, every family should be concerned. And this thing is not about religion. This is what we are learning, right? Al-Shabaab has been different case. recruitment of al-Shabaab, al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia. This thing is different. Even the profile is different. It's confusing. So it could happen to anyone. Along with the parents and the mothers, we identified certain characteristics that were really noticeable. Um, and some of them were, but in the last 3 months, 4 months prior to departure, they would be very pensive, cutting him or herself from friends, changing friends completely, shunning all the friendship, being sometimes vocal about like about infidel, about religion, about basing everything on religion. So those were certain characteristics that all the guys who left for al-Shabaab have shared. But for ISIS, it's different. We are seeing people who we do not find them in the general profile that really went to ISIS. We have seen young people allegedly stopped going to ISIS who were not that religious, they were just angry. In my community, we have seen a breakdown of communication between young people and adults. And most of that breakdown pertains to intergenerational crisis, which is you have parents who only speak Somali, and you've got young people who their primary language is English. So there's not that much of a communication that takes place at home. These young people, usually they have, like any other young people around the world, they are strong, they want answers, and usually parents would have played a key role to answer why the teacher suspended him while he was the victim of a fight or maybe assault in his school, but the principal and the management suspends him. But that's not what makes it worse. Is when they got home, they don't find a listening ear. We need to work together. We need to stop the isolation of certain communities by themselves. We should have our imams encourage coexistence and promote that people should get together and work together. That's very important. We would also break down the invisible walls of our community and start that conversation without labeling each other, and have those cultures intermingle like we do Cedar Cultural Center, or we do in the Mixed Blood Theater, or we do in the Curry Park when we play soccer together or basketball together. What these bad people thrive on is isolation. First, they isolate the community by creating fear of the rest of the community, by use of religion sometimes, or negative stereotypes. And when they isolate, then they take your cultural things away from you. And when they do that, they build a culture for you. And you live in constantly isolation and fear of others. They will become the only microphone that exists in the community, and that should not happen.